Dear friends and students, you are listening to the book Glimpses of World History by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Chapter 15, Persia and Greece, January 21st, 1931. Your letter came today, and it was good to know that Mummy and you were getting on well. But I wish Dadu would get rid of his fever and his troubles. He has worked so hard all his life, and even now he can have no peace and no rest. So you have read many books from the library and want me to suggest more. But you do not tell me what you have read. It is a good habit to read books, but I rather suspect those who read too many books quickly. I suspect them of not reading them properly at all, of just skimming them and forgetting them the day after. If a book is worth reading, it is worth reading with some care and thoroughness. But then, there are such vast numbers of books which are not worth reading at all. And it is no easy matter to pick and choose good books. You may tell me that if you choose books from our library, they should be good books. Or else, why should we have got them? Well, read on, and I shall give you such help as I can from Naini prison. Often I think of the speed with which you are growing in mind and body. How I should like to be with you. Perhaps you may outgrow these very letters that I am writing to you by the time they reach you. I suppose that Chand will be old enough to read them then, so that anyhow there will be someone to appreciate them. Let us go back to old Greece and Persia and consider for a while their wars with each other. In one of our letters, we discussed the Greek city-states and the great empire of Persia under a ruler called by the Greeks Darius. This empire of Darius was a great one, not only in extent, but also in organization. It extended from Asia Minor to the Indus, and Egypt was part of it. And so also were some Greek cities of Asia Minor. Right across this vast empire ran good roads, along which went regularly the imperial post. Darius, for some reason or other, decided to conquer the Greek city-states. And during these wars, some very famous battles of history took place. The accounts that we have of these wars were written by a Greek historian named Herodotus, who lived very soon after the events he recorded. He was, of course, partial to the Greeks, but his account is very interesting, and I shall, in the course of these letters, give you some passages from his history. The first Persian attack on Greece failed because the Persian army suffered greatly during its march from disease and lack of food. It did not even reach Greece, but had to go back. Then came the second attack in 490 BC. The Persian army avoided the land route this time and came by sea and landed at a place called Marathon near Athens. The Athenians were greatly alarmed, for the fame of the Persian Empire was great. In their fear, the Athenians tried to make up with their old enemies, the Spartans, and appealed to them for help against the common enemy. But even before the Spartans could arrive, the Athenians succeeded in defeating the Persian army. This was at the famous Battle of Marathon, which took place in 490 BC. It seems curious that a small Greek city-state could have defeated the army of a great empire. But this is not so strange as it might appear. The Greeks were fighting near their home and for their home, whilst the Persian army was far from its homeland. It was a mixed army of soldiers from all parts of the Persian Empire. They fought because they were paid for it. They were not interested very much in the conquest of Greece. The Athenians, on the other hand, fought for their freedom. They preferred to die rather than lose their freedom, and those who are prepared to die for any cause are seldom defeated. So Darius was defeated at Marathon. He died in Persia later and was succeeded by Xerxes. Xerxes also had the ambition to conquer Greece, and he fitted out an expedition for this purpose. And here I shall take you to the fascinating story as told by Herodotus. Artabanus was the uncle of Xerxes. He thought there was danger to the Persian army in going to Greece, and he tried to persuade his nephew not to make war against Greece. According to Herodotus, Xerxes' reply argued that excessive caution leads to inaction, that success favors those willing to take risks, and that Persia's greatness had itself been built by ancestors who dared rather than hesitated. I have paraphrased his reply at length because it helps us understand the Persian king better than almost any other account. As it happened, the advice of Artabanus turned out to be correct, and the Persian army was defeated in Greece. Xerxes lost, but the spirit of his words still carries a lesson for us all. And today, when we are trying to achieve great things, let us remember that we must pass through great dangers before we can reach our goal. Xerxes, the king of kings, took his great army across Asia Minor and crossed to Europe over the Dardanelles, or the Hellespont as it was called in those days. On his way, it is said, Xerxes paid a visit to the ruins of Troy, where the Greek heroes of old had battled for Helen. A great bridge was put across the Hellespont for the army to cross, and as the Persian army went across, Xerxes surveyed it, seated on a marble throne atop a nearby hill. Herodotus tells us that as Xerxes looked out over the entire Hellespont covered with ships and the shores and plains full of men, he first felt himself a happy man, and then suddenly wept. When his uncle Artabanus asked why he had gone so quickly from happiness to tears, Xerxes explained that he had been struck by pity at the thought of how brief human life is, since not one of the vast multitude before him would still be alive 100 years hence. And so the great army advanced by land, and the multitude of ships accompanied it by sea. But the sea sided with the Greeks and destroyed most of the ships in a great storm. The Hellenes, or Greeks, were frightened at this great host, and, forgetting all their quarrels, they united against the invader. They retreated before the Persians and tried to stop them at a place named Thermopylae. This was a very narrow path, with the mountain on one side and the sea on the other, so that even a few men could defend it against a host. Here was placed Leonidas with 300 Spartans to defend the pass to the death. Right well did these gallant men serve their country on that fateful day, just 10 years after Marathon. They held back the Persian host while the Greek army retreated. Man after man fell in that narrow pass, and man after man replaced them, and the Persian army could not advance. Leonidas and his 300 comrades lay dead at Thermopylae before the Persians could go ahead. This took place in 480 BC, 2,410 years ago, and even today one's heart thrills to think of this unconquerable courage. Even today, the traveler to Thermopylae may see, engraved in stone, the epitaph of Leonidas and his colleagues, telling the passerby that they lie there in obedience to Sparta's commands. Wonderful is the courage that conquers death. Leonidas and Thermopylae live on forever, And even we in distant India feel a thrill when we think of them. What then shall we say or feel of our own people, our own forebears, men and women of Hindustan, who right through our long history have smiled and mocked at death, who have preferred death to dishonor or slavery, and who have preferred to break rather than bow down to tyranny. Think of Chittor and its peerless story, of the amazing heroism of its Rajput men and women. Think also of our present day, of our comrades, warm-blooded like us, who have not flinched at death for India's freedom. Thermopylae stopped the Persian army for a while, but not for long. The Greeks retreated before them, and some Greek cities even surrendered to them. The proud Athenians, however, preferred to leave their dear city to destruction rather than surrender. And the whole population went away, mostly on ships. The Persians entered the deserted city and burnt it. The Athenian fleet had, however, not yet been defeated, and a great battle took place near Salamis. The Persian ships were destroyed, and Xerxes, thoroughly disheartened by this disaster, went back to Persia. Persia remained a great empire for some time longer, but Marathon and Salamis pointed the way to its decline. Later, we shall see how it fell. For those who lived in those days, it must have been amazing to see this vast empire totter. Herodotus thought over it and drew a moral from it: that a nation's history has three stages: success, then, as a consequence of success, arrogance and injustice, and then, as a consequence of these, downfall. Dear friends and students, you are listening to the book Glimpses of World History by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe the channel. Let's meet in the next episode.